Hey everybody, I said in the last video I was making a butcher's knife, and this is it. And it's a big knife. It's kind of a steak knife really, cutting up meat. It's all it's going to be used for. There's no boning, no chopping, simply cutting. It's an 11-inch blade from the handle, so it's a lot of steel to draw out. So I started laying up this billet, as you probably saw in the last video, and I'm currently at 400 layers. So when I put those two together, we're going to have 800 layers. But kind of it's 400 layers a side this is going to be, because I'm going to put a piece of this very nice, very high carbon steel in there. And that is going to be our billet. And we're going to pull that out approximately twice its length to make this knife. I'm just going to tack weld this now, and we're going to get this forged out and pulled out into this humongous steak knife. This is the other billet I've been working on. I showed a picture of the end grain on this. Since then I've further forged it out another 5 times. I then tiled it, so it was a row of 6-7 tiles going that way, which have now been forged down. You can actually see the weld lines there, maybe. This is a really fine intricate pattern. I've literally just cut the jacket off this just to make sure I got all the mild steel out of it. There's a little bit there, you can just see it, but that's really the gash end of the billet. That will be cut off when it's been forged out. So I'm going to also forge this down, and just hopefully these welds will stay closed. It looks pretty good. It does look pretty good. It was originally twice this depth before I forged it down, so it should be a good weld on them. And I've given it plenty of hold time in the forge for the grain to grow through. Let's get to it. Well, I'm doing a dry weld, so I'm not using any borax. I've heated it up to a cherry red colour, ignore the camera colours, and I'm just pushing it together, stop any oxygen getting in. I'm going to get it much hotter, and then it will be on to the first weld. This is that mosaic billet I had on the bench, and I'm just putting this through the drawing out dies now, just to make sure that that is completely welded and none of them tiles are going to break apart. Another go on that same billet here now, just drawing it out a little bit more. I've left the other one soaking for a little while, but yeah, the mosaic billet was good. And I drew it out considerably more during this session. So I'm back on the Sanmai, 800 layer Sanmai now, and this is kind of the first weld, and I carried on. I did another one of these welds, and then I started pulling out, and then I realised I hadn't put the damn ladder pattern in, so I had to stop. I got a little carried away there drawing out. You can see I am almost there, about 2 inches to pull out yet. Plenty to get this. Got a good thickness. We've got 10mm almost. You can see my core steel, beautifully centred. One thing I forgot, to put the ladder pattern in. Luckily, like I say, I've still got 10mm. So that's what I'm going to have to do, but I should have done it before now really. Like I say, I just completely forgot. So I'm going to put some cuts in. I'm not going to go too deep, a couple of millimeters, because this will forge down more now. And it'll just put those undulations in. My mosaic billet is here. It's still a little bit warm. It's just come. I've just took it out of the annealing tub. It's been in vermiculite for the last sort of 3 hours. So it's just cooling now since I took it out. I can see the pattern. Looks really nice. It's not as tight as the mosaics I usually do, so you'll actually be able to see this one. But I've just, like I said, I've just got to decide what I'm going to make from it. If I can get 2 knives out of it, then I'm going to carry on forging it out. Yes, I think I can actually. I'll get two of my bushcraft knives out of there. 1, 2. Forge is lit. I've cut my grooves in, like I said, 2-ish millimeters deep. So I'm just going to forge that out now. First of all, I'm just going to go and mark this out on my anvil. So I'm okay there. I'm okay there. So I just need to widen this end out here for this little bullnose flare. I'm going to try and pull that out there for that handle. I'm not too bothered if I don't get that, because I've almost got the handle anyway. Just need to pull that corner out a bit, which I can kind of forge down, because when we're ground we'll have that width. Well, I've got my following dies in lengthways here because I've got 2 jobs to do. I've got to push that pattern in by bringing the bottom of those cuts to the surface. I've also got to widen the blade quite significantly at the front and at the back to pull that bit of a handle out. This should do both jobs. It makes me laugh when I watch Forged in Fire, because these guys, they start off making some kind of weird sword thing, and they just draw the billet out, you know, about 3 foot long, and they don't realise that whilst you've got some thickness, you've got to pull the width out of the blade, because it's too late once you've drawn your bar out thin. And I've only got 10mm here, so, you know, there's not much to play with. You probably noticed I didn't forge the tipping on this, and that's because I didn't really want to change up the pattern at the front of the knife. I want the pattern to just be the same right the way across the blade. There's not a lot of steel, as you can probably see, to pull this big knife out of, so I'm just going to have to actually forge down thinner than I wanted to, really, but I think I'll get it. So it's just time now to pull out the width on the handle, and I've also managed to kind of successfully pull the bottoms of those cuts and grooves to the surface, so there will be a lot of pattern in it. That's the main thing. I just need to put the fullering and flattening die in now, and then pull this out to length. It's going to look weird, but I'm checking it against my template that I've drawn on the anvil, and I'm nearly there. Just need about another 2 inches on the billet length. So you can see a spacer in there on the die, which I'm going to use to just draw this out, fuller it out actually, uniform thickness all the way down, which will further enhance the ladder pattern, I would have thought. And then I can put the big flattening die on and just get this big thing dead flat and get it finished. I've got my pattern drawn on the anvil, and I'm just going to few passes on this now. The anvil's dead flat. Forgot to mention I absolutely love this new anvil. It's just amazing. So I'm just going to keep tapping it here till I just know the whole thing is dead flat, and then I will heat it up in the forge and I'll put it into vermiculite. But the shape is there. Oh well, I annealed this last night. It was quite late when I finished forging. It was 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, something like that, in the evening. Literally all I've done is squash that flat. I didn't, like I said, I might have said in the video, if not I'll do a voiceover, but I didn't forge the tip in because I didn't want to distort the pattern. I didn't bother forging the handling because there wasn't going to be enough steel to do anything else with. I realised that as I was drawing the billet out. My thickness at the moment is almost 6 millimeters. Yeah, it varies a little bit. It's a bit thicker here, I think, 6.1 mil. That's really good because I've got 3 millimeters now I can take off this blade. So what I'm going to do, this is still a little bit oversized, this marking on here. I've just drawn around the outside of that template, which is itself slightly oversized. I always do them a little bit oversized. Not much, but you can see. So I'm going to cut this out now. The billet is not quite straight. It's come out of annealing with a bit of a bend here. So I'm going to try and get it as straight as I can first, just by bending it. Then I'm going to put it on the grinder and clean all this forging scale off and just see what I've got. Those cuts and slashes have gone, as you can see. So the steel has been forged down flat. So we will have a nice pattern in there. Anyway, let's get this done. I've just got the profile ground in, still a little bit oversized, maybe by a couple of millimeters, especially this edge. So this edge there's more there than I need on the edge. It's going back about 2 mil for after I do the normalizing heat treating, and then I can grind away any decarb on that edge. But basically, yeah, I've got it. That's the scrap that was left. That's what was cut off on the bandsaw. As you can see, not much. And then a bit of the flashing ground off on the grinder. Again, not much. You can just see the core in here. I'll bring you in and close so you can have a look at it. But my next step is to do the normalizing and grain refining. It did take a bend as it annealed. So it took a bend that way just from the handle. May have been like that when I put it in, I don't know. But if it's going to bend again, it'll show up in normalizing and grain refining. And I can hopefully remedy that to a certain degree for when I quench. It may not do it again. No reason to see why it should do. I'll bring you in and just show you the core. It is beautifully centered right in the middle of the blade. So when we grind these bevels in, these big long bevels here, somewhere there, we'll have that core the same on each side. You can maybe see that core there. It's possibly just a shadow. I can't really see if the camera's picking it up or not. There, you can probably see it better there. Just that shadow there in the centre, that's our white paper steel. It's also really well centred on the spine. Not that that matters too much, but I'm just saying that it is. Right, onward and upward. It's been a full-on day, guys, because not only have I finally got this blade to profile and normalised and grain refined and more or less down to thickness, so I'm at 4.2 millimeters now. I've also cleaned the sides up again, so it's gone from, I can't remember what it was before, was it 5.5 or something, 6 mil? Yeah, taking it down to just over 4 mil, and I'm going to leave it at that because my man's been round, had a look at it, and he said yeah, he's more than happy with a 4 mil spine. So we're going to take a lot of this flat down straight to that beautiful hardened carbon edge, and it's heat treated now on this one. It did perform a slight bend again. The handle turned this way a little bit, probably about 3 millimeters. I suspect, I don't know why it keeps putting a bend in just there. I don't know why it's doing that, and I suspect it'll probably do it again when I heat treat. So I will pull the bend out in temper. I've also been, whilst I've been doing all this, I've also been forging. So the mosaic billet I had, I've managed to pull 2 of my knives out of it, and that is the smaller bushcraft knife, which I call the fox blade, and I've just got that. There's the billet opened up a little bit here at the front. I was aiming for the big blade there, which I kind of got as well. But when I saw this little crack opening here, the piece I had left on that billet, I had enough to forge out that. So I changed my mind, and I'm gonna make the small knife out of that one. The other billet is here, which is still hot, and there's a lot more steel here. So I'm gonna get this blade out of that, and you can see I've got enough there, and that billet is perfectly fine and clean. So there will be, it's kind of my two, it's kind of, I've just kind of rehashed these two models. The Fox is slightly smaller than the dog blade. You can see they're almost 2 identical blades. The dog blade is longer, it's a bit wider, more or less the same size handle, because the original Fox handle was smaller, but I've kind of made these two the same size now. And that's like a big paw, which fits beautifully in there. So you know, that handle should fit everybody. So I'll probably show you these in another video as I progress through getting these cleaned up and ground out and handles on, etc. But in the meantime, I'm going to get this heat treated tonight. The pattern which you can't see. I've tried to show you the pattern, guys, but it's rough ground too much to even try and show you. But it's a nice pattern, it really is, which I'll show you in the next video. The handle, what I'm going to do here, I'm putting a brass, kind of a brass bolster guard there type thing, and I'm also going to run a piece of brass along the back there, because I want to sandwich the handle here, and the handle's going to be wrapped with a stamped leather that kind of looks a bit like fish scales, which I did on his previous knife, and he wants that on this knife again, so that they're kind of a matching pair. And this pattern really does resemble his other knife. It's not far off at all. I think the other knife had a slightly higher layer count, being a smaller knife. But I'm going to leave it there, guys, with this, and hope you come and see me in the next episode, where I'll get this finished. We'll get handles on it, we'll get it etched, and you can have a good look at the finish. There's a few little bumps and bumps in it because I can't actually get this on my surface grinder, so I've had to clean it up by hand. It is dead straight now, dead flat. You can see there's nothing there untoward, but I suspect it will bend here again, like I say. But yeah, so join me in the next one, guys, in a few days, and we'll get this huge steak knife ground, etched and handled.